think they're going to have a superintendent to run this school. That is not, while we pay them $250,000 total or more to do their job. And the school is not let them do it.
No. And I'm part of the guilt of it too. The last time we reversed her decision.
Well, let's say then call protocol and that is suspended.
Right.
We have a plan in place for a purpose.
And we didn't, and we weren't into that. And the other thing on that though was the numbers. We need to separate quarantine numbers from positive numbers. And if we get that, because I can make when I'm looking at positive, we got maybe 8 cases of positive. One's bad. But do you shut down the entire school system 10 days later?
Baby.
That's a good argument.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And the kids had better numbers than she did.
And I'll tell you, like my daughter, my
Harry, is Aaron coming?
is
Is Aaron coming? Because we're 6 o'clock.
All right, we can.
because her teacher had,
We'll give her a minute, then I'll call if you want to.
Okay.
her teacher had,
Brian, I met him going the other way.
I got other things to do.
yeah, my nephew, my grandson lives in the same house, he can go to school.
Yeah.
That don't make sense. And my grandkids been
And we were questioning
information
how we arrive at who quarantined and when they quarantined. It was a hell of a fight.
A little bit if we have time. I printed off some stuff. I'm not going to go into a big detail. I tried
Abby,
to call the
wrong color.
commissioners today to see because they've got a ton of that CARES money left.
Make sure it would be
And
covered by.
they check out at
can hand the
I
gavel.
called her logo setting here.
Yeah, she's only part-time, I think.
So
Nice big salary.
I'll try to give them a call tomorrow.
I'm gonna hand it to you.
Really?
Is it?
How many? That'd be nice. That'd be real nice.
Request for?
DHSS put something out today that they're going to give another round of $40 billion out. But I don't know if that DHSS, but wouldn't be any education funds, I guess. But somebody's going to get that. I wonder if there's a. Do we have any microphones across the district? They were talking about that they couldn't hear. They couldn't hear in here.
Yeah, we're going.
To work through these, you think? Test. It's not giving me anything. I guess we can find out if we're online for sure. I'm assuming we are. Harry, let's roll.
Yeah, just a second.
Yeah. I hope she's all right.
No, she's here.
Huh?
She's here.
Okay, great.
Jeez. Did you read it?
Brian's on his way also. He thought it was 6:30.
I just met him on Slater Road.
Yeah, he said, I'm on my way. Aaron just called me and said it's 6. She thought it was 6:32, I guess.
I met him on the way here.
I thought it was 6:32. I didn't.
He was just
I had to text her to find out it was at Spain House.
probably trying to enjoy the night for 30 minutes.
Have you read that?
No. No. Like the emergency ones the next day, those are hard to get at 6. But like if I know prior to, then I can. Yeah.
So we don't have it.
And we don't hardly have any of
Okay,
those.
I was just.
No, as long as I have a
Good.
few days notice, I can kind of swing it. So.
I want to make sure we announce that so that people know. Okay. That they're getting. Yeah, it just. There was lots of question after that.
I would like to somehow make the head table come off of that
Open space.
down the pole, some of the tables, so it's not so much outside.
Uh-huh.
And then back to the screen right there in front of you, so-
Yeah, that would help.
Smart board type.
You read that thing, business thing?
Close to our, she's the coach.
Sure.
I don't know.
If I can get one of these, we can take all that wiring, get it out of this mess right here.
Yeah.
Run it straight across here, maybe, or even maybe just a little bit.
Let's see where I can get one.
And maybe
Take those in.
I don't care about that.
I do like the space it.
You wanna do it?
yeah.
I'm glad to step in.
Hey, Harry, hold on just a second. Yeah, go ahead.
I know there's been a trouble hearing when you're in this room. We're working on that solution we don't have tonight, so we're all gonna try to speak up as best we can. We're meeting with Foxbox actually in the morning, we're switching out all of our mics and our amps, so we're gonna get, getting a couple of speakers in here into the system. So apologize yet this evening, but the solutions are on the way. Thank you, sir.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Need a motion to adopt the agenda, please. I'm not aware of any changes in it.
Make a motion that we adopt the agenda as it is.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda has been adopted. Public comments per board. Sam Sampson, Marshall NEA. Is he present? Or she present? You want to clock it? You got to watch it.
Hi there. My name is Sam Sampson. I'm a special ed teacher.
Sam, we have a 5-minute policy. You're on the
Yep.
clock as soon as you start.
Perfect. That'll be really hard if you knew me. I'm a high school teacher, special ed. Love my job. I was asked to speak here tonight from my NEA members and relay to you their feelings about being deemed as essential workers. I do not speak for only myself. These are the words of my coworkers, and they have entrusted me to relay them to you today. Upon meeting and speaking with my teachers, there are a couple of overwhelming and recurring comments and concerns. First, people are afraid to speak up, show up, or leave feedback in fear of retribution or retaliation. Some people would only speak to me in person or by phone for fear of not wanting anything in writing because they feel they might be making themselves a target. I feel it's important that you're aware of this growing feeling. Second, the board does not take, use, or consider teacher feedback. My coworkers whom I spoke with feel that teachers or staff are overlooked stakeholders within our district. We want to be heard and want to be worked with. This is not what teachers have seen so far in these meetings. The interactions between staff and the board have been unsettling in the recent past. In the words of an MPS teacher, I quote, "I'm not in favor of being designated an essential worker. I believe it gives admin and the Board of Education all-encompassing power that forces us to do whatever they want without any regard for our safety. And the last week has taught us anything. They don't really care for our safety, or they wouldn't be changing the formula and guidelines we had places on their whims so we can keep playing sports." That was a quote, as I recall. We encourage our board to continue following current protocols, screenings, social distancing, wearing masks, and disinfecting. We also would like the board to consider and communicate more with all the school employees. It is evident during my discussion with teachers that many do not feel comfortable taking this board or standing in the place, talking to the board, or standing in this place where I am today. Teachers are anxious and being asked to move mountains and do so with a smile. Teachers are fearful that they can be forced to do things that they are not safe and this is not a comfortable working environment. Excuse me. I personally know many teachers have been updating their resumes and looking for positions outside of education. We cannot let this happen. We have amazing teachers in this district and need to work together to ease the fears and frustrations of our staff. With that being said, on behalf of NEA members, we ask the board to consider whether our staff values, that you value staffing and substitutes over the safety of students and staff. If the board decides that safety is the #1 priority, then teachers would like to be designated as non-essential workers. I'm aware that some teachers do not wish to be essential workers. However, that's a small minority based on the information I have gathered. It is important to note that support staff, to my understanding, from their input, differ in their opinion and would like to be considered as essential workers. I'm sure Kip Bethel can shed some light on this. I would like to thank you for extending the invitation for us to be here, including CTA, allowing me to address you here on behalf of NEA to hear input from our district teachers. The anxiety level of our staff is already off the charts, and we need to know if the district continues and makes teachers essential workers, what precautions will be in place to make sure that returning employees will not infect others. It's impossible to ensure that teachers will be able to maintain social distancing while in the buildings. How does the board propose to address this? NEA Legal Counsel encouraged the district to consider the legal liability due to COVID exposure and potential illness of staff. NEA representation has encouraged staff who have become infected to file workmen's compensation claims. It is important to hold our district responsible for maintaining a safe working environment. We also have concerns that the parents deserve to know if their child and all their children are in close contact with an individual who has not completed their quarantine as prescribed. Teachers are concerned about potential retaliation if they choose not to come out of quarantine early. This leaves teachers to feel obligated to return or not to be a team player. Again, we ask the board to be designated as non-essential workers and the support staff to be essential. Our NEA members request and ask to hear us out. Before I go tonight, I'd like to introduce Dr. Melissa Pemberton Albright, our NEA Uniserver Director, who's a Marshall native. And I'd like to thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sam.
That's not an action item, so. Football turf sod irrigation, action item.
That's me.
That's you, Ellen.
Okay, so the first thing I want to say is this particular item was the sole purpose for this meeting tonight. So my talking about this and my discussion about this, I want to make it very clear that this is not the most important. I don't feel like this is the most important thing that we have to address, but this is the reason why we had a meeting scheduled initially for tonight. You guys have received a new packet of information. This came from ASP. That is the group that several community members, Dr. Lorenz, Dr. Mayer, myself met with. I asked them for some more information after Aaron spoke with the attorney. There's been some question and concern from the district level regarding single sourcing this versus, help me with your acronyms, RFPing it or RFQing it, ABCD it. There's been some concern with that, and so we wanted to make sure at the last meeting that we had a chance to talk to the attorney and we had some clear understanding. Since then, in order to get us something to the board that looked semi-comfortable, I have had multiple communication with some financial institutions. My understanding is, and Dr. Mayer, please correct me if I'm wrong, there is no opportunity for the district to there's no opportunity for the district to finance any of this project. Therefore, because we are at our max lease purchase, okay? However, the district has $250,000 set aside for the track. They have $74,000-ish from insurance from the football field damage. There was $25,000 proposed for a water system. Mr. Paprick, those numbers aren't included in what I gave you, but he gave us a figure for water usage. And Dr. Mayor, we had kind of guessed around 20,000 for expenses. There's a number figured and computed for expenses that we spend on that field annually that we would not need to do if this project happened. So there are some numbers identified in your packets regarding that. Thus, it does make what needs to happen or what we need to decide. This packet that I had written up for you tonight would give us an opportunity to include our booster club in this project. I really think that's a great way to go. I was going to meet with them last night. They canceled their meeting, so they meet the 14th, and I hope to meet with them then. I think that's doable. At that point in time, there is at least one, maybe two financial institutions that are willing to finance this project based on the pledges that this organization gets for this project. So if, let's say they're working and they raise $1.1 million in pledges, let's just say it's in pledges, over 5 years, then those financial institutions would fund the money based on those pledges. I've talked to everyone that sat at that meeting that day, and all of them feel as though the district should, I'm not saying this is my opinion, they feel that the district should spend the money that they have reserved for the track, or for this project. I'm not saying that's my opinion. I don't have an opinion on that necessarily. If we can raise it, great. And then we don't have to use it, great. But if we don't, we have it there, and that's the reason why. This certainly is not a project to take out of anybody's pocket. I want to make that very clear also. This would not be a push if the field was not damaged. This would not be a push if the district hadn't worked to save that money. So your packet that you have tonight is written as if we were to partner, use whatever the words are supposed to be, the Booster Club, with the understanding that the district would put money towards that project. If we move ahead, I think that it's an opportunity for us to say, let's move ahead with this and then come back with final figures. I think that's reasonable. But I don't know how, I need to be able to speak to the Booster Club. We need to work through them if that's what they choose to do. I think that I have spoken to a few of them, and they're definitely interested. It does, you're working on pledges. We have had some people come out and say, if we're going to be right on the field, then we want in. So the support is definitely there. We feel like it's something that we can definitely get done. Their proposal is that if we move forward with this, that they would start November, December, making cold calls to the people on our list. And then they'll be pushing it through to think that early spring, they would start the project if everything was in line. There are some, in your packet, there are some, there's a large list of schools in the state of Missouri that they've done this for. There are some recommendations in there. There's a possible agreement in there. There is a letter from the gentleman, his name is Mark. He was the athletic director in Springfield when they did it for their entire elementary, middle, and high school. He raised $3.5 million in 3 months. I know Springfield's a bigger area. Don't misinterpret my words. We don't need that much money. I do think that it's a great opportunity to remind people that we were able to raise $376,000 for the gym in about 4 months. So this is a bigger project. It definitely hits more people. So I don't know if I were going to recommend something, I would recommend that we vote to move forward, to discuss it with the Booster Club, to make sure that we have everything lined out with those financial institutions and they're ready to go, and leave that $250,000 and the insurance money earmarked for this project. But that would be my recommendation to the board.
We have this as an action item but I'm not sure that it needs to be if we let the Booster Club handle it, because we really don't want to take this on as a district.
Well, basically, all we have to do is agree to move forward to the Booster Club and let Ellen come back. to
We
it.
would have to, we would have
All we
to,
needed to do was vote to accept the turf bid tonight, which was gonna expire. Right? That's
But
the
we
action
can't do
item that
that.
we need to do, is either we're gonna accept the sod bid, or if we're going to.
it's going to
pursue
expire.
another-
That bid's going
We
to
can't do
expire.
that.
Right, so that's all we have to do, is just say we're not going to use the turf bid at this time. Or
Do
the
we need
sod
to,
bid, I'm
do
sorry.
we need to vote on whether we're gonna save those funds
I
for
don't
this
think
project or
so.
not? Okay,
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
we can just.
they're
just-
earmarked, so they're just there.
I think we can just tell you to go ahead, and we could decide not to accept the turf bid at this point in time. That might
Right.
cost us extra money on down the road. But, you know, if we can't make this one work,
Okay,
that would be, that's how you're
Right.
thinking?
Yeah, I so move that we do not accept the turf bid that we've had for roughly 45 days. I think that had a 60-day expiration, is why we actually had this meeting this time.
yep.
Second. You've got a second? Are all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, as a caveat on that, Dr. T, well, I'll ask you later, with the turf people, if maybe we can at least, you know,
We have a good relationship with Brock.
do we? in case
Yeah,
we
he
have
and I have
to-
talked several
in case we
times.
have to
Have
go
you
back
talked to him
to 'em
anymore?
if this falls apart on us, we
Yeah.
might. All right. Ah, there's my girl.
Howdy.
I'm glad to hand you that. We are down to here.
Good, thank you.
We rejected the turf bid for this time. Ellen needs to go to the Booster Club. She'll report to us at the next board meeting. We did have this comments on the, I'm sorry, people.
I will,
Bring our president up to date.
I will.
We did have public comments here. We're here to this one.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who's on? You're here for that one.
I think this is way more legal than he's ever had to deal with, so I don't know. I mean, you know.
It's all right. Brian only beat you by about 2 steps. so.
I thought we did these at
Yeah.
6:30 for Matt's Day.
I was gonna say, Aaron
So
and I were on
high.
the phone at 5 to 5:30 or
Yep.
so, and both said 6:30, so.
Yep.
That's okay. I started for the board.
Yeah, thank you.
I started for the central office and then text Aaron. I says, I think I'm lost. So I think, hey, okay.
All right.
Item 6.
So the action on item number 5 was,
We voted down the turf bid at this point in time
okay,
until Ellen goes to the Board of to the Booster Club and reports back to us the next October meeting what their feelings are.
right, okay,
And then we may be able to move forward with the turf.
gotcha, okay. So all is complete there with item number 5 then, yes?
Right.
Okay. Right on time to talk about the essential workers designation. Now, this is here as an action item, and we've got the returning to learning plan listed underneath it. In the original agenda, of course, this wasn't added on yet. And I've got lots of preface to say about the essential workers designation and an item of information that came to me just shortly before Brian and I got on the phone that I'm going to share with the rest of the board about it.
Is that the one you already shared?
Not with you. Nope.
Oh.
Nope. This is brand new.
Another one?
This is late breaking stuff. So, I've got a few notes written about it so that I make sure that I get everything said that needs to be said. Okay. When we met last week, I'd assumed that we'd talk about the return to learning plan tonight. Yeah. I'd assumed that we'd talk about it tonight and make sure in that discussion to look at how it might need to be, how the plan might need to be adjusted to meet our district's needs. But the ground has shifted below our feet in many ways in that time. A lot happens in a week. There are a few important facts I want to share about the returning to learning plan and the essential workers designation before we vote on anything. First, to be clear, the board never declared that we were for certain going to be back in the classroom on October 8th. In fact, the whole point of our discussion of the plan tonight was going to be whether we could come up with building by building plans that could make it possible for the district to resume in-person learning. Am I correct in that so far, rest of the board?
That's the way I interpret it.
Okay. In fact, let me read to you exactly what I sent to Channel 41 News when their reporter asked me about whether our intention was to go back to in-person learning on October 8th. And I quote, "Pending our decision in our meeting on October 6th, yes." In other words, yes, we would bring our students back into the buildings on October 8th. If administrators express concerns, for example, we would consider different dates. Anything in other words, anything you read or heard otherwise then about the fact that we are going to absolutely, with no other discussion, come back on October 8th, anything you read to that effect
Hey,
is
Erin,
at best a
They
misunderstanding.
cannot hear you in the back of the room.
I wish
So-
I could be louder. I really do. I need to be wearing an N95 mask because of the nature of my job. I will do my very best to both breathe and speak loudly, but I am only human. So you'll have to bear with me in the back of the room, okay?
Is there a way we can get a PA system in here sometime if we're gonna have all this stuff?
Okay, I'm gonna go on, all right? You may then be wondering why changes to the returning to learning plan have just been added to the agenda, right? Or what our discussion about that's going to be. I'm trying to skip forward a little bit.
Well, one of them is the difference between quarantine and people who are infected.
Yeah. One of the reasons that see, when we originally planned this agenda, the returning to learning plan wasn't even on the agenda. So my notes that I've written to that effect actually phrase it in terms of not having the returning to learning plan on the agenda. And for the sake of not overtaxing my brain, I'm just going to read through that. One reason that we originally planned this meeting, one reason that it wasn't going to be on the agenda was that we had originally planned to have just two topics, namely turf and sod and the essential workers designation. All right. That said, the essential workers designation is related to the returning to learning plan, and that's why it makes sense to preface our discussion of that with a little bit about what's going on with the returning to learning plan. Another reason that it wasn't necessarily going to be on the agenda is that that I've spoken with our attorney, with the school district's attorney, and she has clarified that the board does not, in fact, need to make the plan an official board policy. The rest of the board and I will be discussing the details of that legal opinion in our closed session after the regular meeting, which is why it's there on your agenda. We need to consider our attorney's advice about how we want to have input on the plan, but I think it's fair to say that according to the feedback that I received from individual board members after last week's meeting, we intend to let the plan remain as an administrative procedure. Is that true so far for the rest of the board? Okay, let that be made clear, right? We do not intend to make the returning to learning plan into a school board policy. It will remain an administrative procedure.
And that way it can stay a living document
As it should be, yeah, okay. The details of that, though, I do need to go over with the board in closed session. Okay. So, in addition to all of this, I've just recently received a letter from the Saline County Health Department. Dr. Mayer, it was addressed to Dr. Mayer and to the board, and Dr. Mayer sent it to me late this afternoon, shortly after she herself received it. And I am going to read that letter out. This will be the first time that board members are hearing it, so bear with me
Matt, you already know.
as I find it. When did I? Okay.
What?
So again, this is from the Saline County Health Department, dated today. It has come to our attention that a resolution and/or policy is being discussed and potentially implemented at a Board of Education meeting this evening. After reviewing some of this information, we feel it is our obligation as the local public health authority to voice our concerns. We do not agree with or support some of the content that is contained in the documents that we have reviewed. We have dire concerns for health and safety, as well as potential liability and litigation that could be a result of the implementation of these policies. As a local public health agency, we are obligated to follow all Department of Health and Senior Services guidance, which ultimately is the guidance from Centers for the CDC, Centers for Disease Control. We are not allowed, nor do we have any desire to deviate from that guidance. We strongly urge the Marshall Public Schools Board of Education to table any and all changes at this time and resume the Return to Learn plan that was previously put into place. Our recommendation is that a committee comprising members from Marshall Public Schools Board of Education, Saline County Health Department, and Fitzgibbon Hospital be formed to make any and all decisions related to resolutions or policies that involve any aspect of COVID-19 in Marshall Public Schools. Our hope is that a committee that encompasses these different entities will be able to respectfully and rationally develop a plan that is satisfactory for everyone. If the Board of Education should decide to continue with this resolution/policy this evening, please be aware that you are doing so without our guidance and support. Thank you, Saline County Health Department. It's signed by Tara Brewer, Lisa Thomas, Elizabeth Furking, and Carla Link. So I asked Dr. Mayer to clarify which policies were the ones that SCHD finds objectionable because none were specifically mentioned, and she indicated that at least, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that at least the essential workers designation, but also possibly the new quarantine policy that had been proposed. Am I right there?
I
No.
don't think they had any concerns with
Quarantine.
but they did have concerns with the
Essential worker.
designation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Dr. Mayer has just clarified for me that it was concern about the essential workers designation specifically, to the best of her knowledge, to be fair. And those were the only two changes that I was aware of, the quarantine and the essential workers designation, the only two proposed changes. So here's where we get to where I'm at on this one. I find the Saline County Health Department's recommendation to start a working group for the sake of considering changes to the plan to be reasonable, and I, myself, would therefore support tabling the essential workers designation in order to hear what these healthcare experts have to say about it. In order to get started with such a working group, we would need no more than 3 board members to volunteer to be part of the working group, and that's so that we could avoid having to call a special meeting every time the working group meets. And we would need to collaborate with Dr. Mayer in finding personnel to represent MPS in that working group, so other staff and administrators. And I thought I would close with a bit of clarification. As for when students are to return to class, that will be up to the administration in keeping with the current unchanged returning to learning plan. So ends my statement. I open it up for discussion, including discussion of the essential workers designation.
I am fine with tabling that at this time because we don't even have input, I don't believe, from CTA unless there's something that I've seen. We talked about that briefly this evening. I have seen a report from the classified staff.
Yeah, they're here.
Let's hear from them then.
Yeah, I'll recognize CTA, but we were expecting information. Yeah, I thought we were supposed. Yeah.
Let's do
Oh,
it.
okay, cool. Well then,
Let's do it. Have the podium.
then yeah.
You're both.
It's so loud. I don't need to all stand up there and do this.
And we got his statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can ask him if
You guys gonna make me cry.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a lot of teachers here, and because we know that everything is connected, we appreciate your comments right now, but I still feel that what we had prepared to say needs to be said. The teachers want me to say it. So,
Yeah, of course.
I want to preface it with that I appreciate what I've heard so far tonight, but this is what we need to say. So, as the elected leader of the Community Teachers Association, it's my responsibility to bring to you teachers' concerns, fears, and frustrations, and that's what I'm here to do tonight. And so it basically boils down to three things. We're overworked, this is unsustainable, and we don't feel like the board is listening to us. So as always, the CTA and the teachers literally stand ready to work with you to collaborate, cooperate, and work together towards our common goals. I want to share with you some suggestions that teachers have shared with me about how you can support us and how you can grasp the unique enormity that this school year is. We invite you to come spend a day with a teacher in a building. From the 7:15 a.m. temp check to the final phone call, parent phone call at the end of the day, we invite you to be a part of this with us. I think that the insight you would gain would be incredible. I invite teachers, like we just heard, to be an active part of these discussions. It doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be a CTA member. I really think that if you would reach out, teachers would stand ready to be a part of all of those conversations that we need to have. So that was encouraging to hear you say that. I also realize at the CTA that we can do better. And so going forward, the board members are invited to our meetings, and I am personally going to make sure that you all know when and where they will be held, so those of you that are interested can attend. Now, I know there's limits because you can only have 3 or less and all that kind of stuff, but we're ready to. As teachers, we are masters of problem solving, and we want to make this work. We just can't do it by ourselves. So that's what we're here to say. Julie has some information, and actually a lot of it is similar to what we've already heard tonight, but she's prepared, and I want to honor her time. So I'm going to let her take the mic. This is Julie Gash. She's the representative from Beaker Middle School.
Thank you, Mindy. Hello. I just want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to come and represent Marshall teachers. I want to make it clear that tonight I stand before you not as Julie Gash, the teacher, but as a building representative for CTA. And as so, I'm going to read these bullet points that the CTA has collaborated together as a team and created for you to hear tonight. My first point is the Centers for Disease Control has issued guidance in which essential workers may be allowed to return from close contact quarantine early if they are asymptomatic, have chosen to be tested, and received a negative result. But the guidance also allows essential workers who have not received a positive COVID-19 test, essential workers who have chosen to test or not. So that means that there could be people who would be positive and returning to work, and we wouldn't know it. And that puts us in a dangerous situation. Our local health department does not support employees being considered essential employees. CTA does not support teachers having the option to head back to work who have been in close contact with an infected person and who chooses not to get tested. Based on my conversations with our local health department, you cannot separate receiving a negative test result from the rest of the essential workers designation. This includes the ability for workers who have not tested negative to return to work, and anything could happen within those 14 days. You could test negative and then a few days later test positive, as the hospitals have seen. Point 2, even our local health department agreed that even if they agreed that school employees are essential, these employees must or may have had the virus, and the district has the responsibility to make additional precautions to prevent further spread. CTA recognizes that we are currently following the CDC's recommendations, which include pre-screening, regular monitoring, disinfecting, and cleaning workspaces. But the CDC also recommends that employees who have come in close contact with an infected person have appropriate PPE, and that includes an N95 mask. According to our local health department, these are not easy to come by. So this is not practical. The CDC also recommends that the employees who have come into close contact with an infected person practice social distancing, as work duties permit in the workplace. We know that it is impossible to be effective teachers and work within 6 feet from our students and fellow employees. So, CTA does not support this. If the district chooses to designate their employees as essential, they are opening themselves up to legal liabilities. According to the Missouri School Boards Association, districts have an obligation to maintain a safe environment. And if a district allows employees to return early from quarantine and other employees become ill, they could be subject to workers' compensation claims. Even if school employees are designated essential under the CISA, students are not. CTA recognizes that allowing employees to return to school who may be carrying the virus could infect even more students, therefore requiring more students to quarantine. And this undermines the principal goal, which is keeping students in school. And finally, the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services has recently updated the Missouri School Reopening Guidance to state that they will not designate school employees as essential, but will leave that up to the school districts and local health departments. And CTA is in support of continuing to allow our district leaders to work with our local health department to make case-by-case decisions on quarantine requirements. As I said earlier, I am representing CTA. If you have any questions or comments for CTA to address, please contact our CTA president, vice president, or building representatives, because we need to have the opportunity to work collaboratively as a district team before submitting any responses. Thank you.
I have a question.
I got a question.
So, Mindy, your third statement was the BOE isn't listening, the Board of Education isn't listening. We asked you guys to come here tonight. So I find it offensive, to be real honest. I'm not trying to be rude, you guys. I'm not trying to be rude. But we've asked lots of questions, and every time that I've brought a question to a building level admin or Dr. Mayor, I've been told that you guys need to follow the chain of command. So I've had to slow way down in how I get to communicate with all of you because of what the district level admins, the building level admins, and the superintendent has told me to do as a new board member. And I keep getting the new board member thrown in my face. And so as a new board member, I'm telling you, that is what they're telling me. I am not to go to you. You are not to come to me. You are to go to your building level admin and trust they will tell us.
Right.
If you don't feel heard, I recommend that you go there. I don't know what else to do. I'm tired of being told you're not hearing me, and I'm tired of them telling me if I don't know what I'm talking about to be quiet. So what are we supposed to do? And it is very frustrating because I want you to work. I want the kids to be educated, and I want you all healthy. Everybody healthy. I'm offended, not personally, but I'm offended for these people that we're giving full-time hours to this spot. And to not be heard or to think you're not being heard, it's absurd to me. It's absurd. I have an email me. And if I'm told to go building level, then that's what I'm replying back. Go to your building level admin. I don't know what else to say. And I don't know how else to let you know except to be honest and tell you that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but it is very
Would you like an
frustrating.
honest response as to where your frustration comes from? Because I am prepared with a lot of things. And I am trying to be very political and cordial.
Right?
And frankly, we have stood before you 3 separate times. We stood before you in June with a 60 teacher strong task force and said quarantine's going to be an issue. Subs are going to be an issue. And we were told by you, we're going to do all this for 9 active cases. I'm sorry, that's not listening to me. That's not listening to teachers. We came back with the return to learning plan when it was offered. And we said, hey, guess what? Quarantine is going to be an issue. Subs are going to be an issue. What are you going to do about that? And we were told by you, what made you think you were going to be a part of this process? So that is why we don't feel listen. Ellen said it. I can go back and show you the tapes.
I said you weren't going to be part of the process?
Okay,
We said we wanted to be listened to, and your first question to us was, what made you think you would be a part of the process? You asked us, you questioned it. Okay, fine. You want to disagree? Great. But I'm sorry. I'm upset, and I'm going to take a second to calm down. But when we come before you, and we are talked in that tone, and we are lectured and chastised, it doesn't make us feel listened to.
The frustration from my point, let me be very clear. My frustration is not about you. My frustration is that I want you guys to be able to come to me. This is my list of my tallies of the people that have come to me since Thursday. I don't know what to do. And so honestly, I'm asking you as the CTA president, what response can we give you outside of our vote? I don't know how else to help.
Are you,
That's
are
what
you
I'm
talking
asking.
specifically to,
Period. Like-
but the response is in the discussions. A lot of it makes us not feel listened to, because I know when I stand before you, I'm Mindy Coslet, but I also stand before you as the CTA president, representing all these people in this room. So the way you talk to me is the way you talk to them. So when I stand before you and we raise honest questions and we come and say, look, we want to be a part of the discussion, and we are lectured and chastised and basically dismissed, that makes us feel not listened to. This is our forum. So when we come to you and say we have ideas, we stand ready to collaborate, we mean that. Contact us more than just coming to the CTA. I mean, last month, I reported a meeting. I came to the board meeting, and I prepared a report. And there was an absolute miscommunication, but because I was told not to speak, I couldn't clarify that.
You're right.
So that is where it comes from. And I apologize that I got worked up. I'm very emotional. I love all these people in this room. They're my family, and
So do we.
so
So do we.
No, I'm not saying you don't. I'm telling you where my emotion came from. The fact that I love them doesn't mean you don't love them. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that I got emotional, and I try to keep that in check. But I'm telling you that the conversations that have happened in this forum, in this location, at board meetings, have not been seen as conversations that are supportive and that we're being listened to. And I know that it's not all of the board, and I apologize that we say the board. I think that that's part of prior language, and we need to find a better way to articulate that. But it feels like even when we are asked to speak, that the decision's already made, and when we come to you, it's like the questions of where you're going to undermine what we have to say are already in place. And so I'm on the defensive when I walk in front of you, and I don't like that feeling. So I'm telling you that I know that teachers come to you and tell you things. Teachers come and talk to me too. And I'm telling you, we are exhausted, we are tired, and we just want to feel like we're being listened to. And so to hear you say tonight that you want teachers to be a part of that committee is amazing. Yes, please invite teachers to be a part of that committee. We want to have a say in what happens to us every day, because whatever decision you make, we have to go into the classroom and carry it out.
Well, and to be perfectly frank, I mean, that's what the returning to learning plan was, right?
Right.
I mean, we all worked on it. We all, you finally, you agreed to it, right? Like you said, okay, well, it looks pretty good, right, in the end?
I mean, in the end, we still said there were still questions, but at that point,
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, what else were we going to do? I mean, we were going to strike and not go to work. I mean, obviously, we agreed to the return to learning plan.
Well, sure, yeah.
You know, I
but
mean,
my only point,
Right.
Ms. Coslet, is that I think our primary concern as a board has been, we like the plan.
Right.
It was imperfect, but it's a living document.
Right.
We were sad to see that it was suddenly suspended.
Right.
And we wanted that stability for you as
Right.
much as for the rest of the community.
Yeah, no,
So, yeah,
no.
I think we're on the same page.
No, we are, and I
there.
think that there is definitely common ground. And when I said that we want to work towards the common goal, I
Definitely.
absolutely mean that. I know emotions are high. I know that everybody is stressed. I know that this year is absolutely insane.
We're gonna work
And
through
so, you know, like I said, I apologize for getting hot there for a couple minutes. I pride myself on being an emotionally in control person.
Mr. Hicks had you right there. He was like, you know what, let's talk about, you know,
Well, and I too am frustrated because I want to support you. I
Yeah.
Right.
legitimately want to support you.
Okay.
And I have had numerous long conversations with two of your reps, one standing behind you and one that's not here. And it's very frustrating to me to hear the board isn't listening when I'm sitting at home with my kids listening to your reps.
Right.
That's what's frustrating me. I don't know how else to do it. I don't know how else to hear you. I don't know how else to make you know that I'm hearing you. Honestly, I mean, I don't.
So it sounds like moving forward, having doing as Tara Brewer is suggesting, having a working group that includes you, that includes members of the administrative team, that includes board members, that includes other healthcare professionals, might be the best way forward.
Absolutely.
Especially because we've also seen what Mr. Bethel has shared with us from classified staff.
Yes.
And my concerns are for, somebody brought to my attention this week, the bus drivers, all right, who are in need of support when it comes to making sure that kids are keeping their masks on when they're going to games. A lot of our bus drivers have prior health conditions, and we need to do what we can to protect them, but the classified staff seem to have a different opinion, right? So this is something where we don't need to hash that out right here, right now.
Right, no, and Kip and I have had conversations and we know, yeah.
You come up with 2 teachers
Okay,
to send forth as a name for this committee?
absolutely. Mhm.
Well, if that meets with Dr. Mayor's approval, because
I was
that's,
gonna say, I
yeah.
think we're gonna have to have some number of people at some point, but I think if we
Yeah.
start with 2, then that's probably a reasonable number if we're looking at
I wish
2
this
here,
would've
2
happened
there,
months
a
ago.
couple here that-
I think that would be wonderful.
Are
And
you
we,
interested in knowing your next meeting is?
absolutely. We will get that to you, yep.
As well?
And that's something we've actually talked about since the beginning of the year, and I have just dropped the ball on that. And so that is something that I acknowledge that we can play a part.
With all that spare time you've got?
I know, all that spare time, yeah. So, I mean, and I acknowledge that we can do better too, and I'm here to do better and to be part of this with all of you. I also think that, I don't know if in the 2 teachers you want a certified and a classified. If we want to include a classified additionally, that would be something to definitely look at how we want to do that. 'Cause
Yeah, exactly.
Their,
Yeah,
their,
we need-
their reality is different than our reality, and so I want to make sure they're taken care of too.
Well, their numbers are smaller than your numbers, so we also have to look at maybe
Yeah.
2 and 1.
Okay.
I mean, 2 won't cover
Okay.
someone from each level.
Perhaps
Okay.
we let Dr. Mayor
Yep.
have her
But it
sage
would be a
input on this.
representative of the cross-section, is what I'm hoping to do.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I missed what you said about
Oh,
Dr.
I
Mayor.
was
I
just going to say,
apologize.
rather than, we won't, now is not the time and the place to hash
I-
out
yeah,
who's
I agree.
doing what, doing what, so we just need
Mindy, how many
to.
members do you have district-wide?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I didn't look before I left. I apologize. We
You can
just had
email me.
our drive, and so typically in past years, where's Paulette? 200 plus. So is
I
what.
want to make an observation.
Yeah.
Teachers that work with them, so-
Yeah, yeah. And then I appreciate Sam coming for NEA. We have 2 umbrella organizations in Marshall Public Schools, so there's NEA and MSTA as far as like the larger organizations, but members of NEA and MSTA both can join the CTA, so we're like the local, and then there's a little divergence as you go to the next level of organization. So I just wanted to, but I appreciate
had
her
something to
coming
say,
tonight
Matt,
Well,
and talking.
Mindy, I think I've had a lot of problems since I've been on the board, but the one thing that hurt me more than anything was when I did have a teacher tell me that the board is not listening to the teachers. And I've stood in your place. I was a CTA president 3 times. I know what it's like to stand up there and talk and talk and talk, and then they turn around and go do something else without any reason. But that really bothered me. But I just wanted to say that I'm a teacher and I'm still a teacher.
And we appreciate that, yeah.
And
And we understand that, and we appreciate your voice.
Well, I will.
And I think this almost feels like one of those times where in families, sometimes you have to have a really ugly argument, and then everybody's okay, and we move forward. And so, I don't know about everybody else, but it's kind of what it feels like to me. We just had a fight around the dinner table, and now we're gonna move forward, and we're gonna be okay. I think that emotions are high, and things needed. I think teachers needed to say some things, get some things off our chests, and I think we did. And I can't speak for every teacher in the room, but I personally am hopeful that going forward, that we've found some common ground and we've kind of hashed some stuff out. Maybe we can move forward and really.
My mouth shut tonight.
Well, let's see what Mr. Smith has to say down here.
I was just gonna ask because I'm one of the new members. and I get that a lot,
You're not
but
new anymore, guys.
Would it
You've been
be, I mean, would it
baptized.
be unheard of to have, like, we have board members here that are MSBA delegates, things like that? Would it be unheard of to have a board member appointed as like a buffer between the CTAs so they keep up with,
I like that idea.
keep constant
That's a good idea.
communication? Because I would volunteer to
Like
do
be the
that.
CTA liaison?
Skipping the administration.
Ah,
So
Yeah.
I think a 3.
Once he-
Fair enough, yeah.
Sure,
I think
sure.
we start with 10.
And that's why I ask, I don't know.
And
Yeah.
that way we start a
No,
conversation
no,
that gets a little closer, but we leave.
Do, do administrators attend the CTA meetings?
They used to. I don't know. They used to be members.
Well, we have executive committee meetings, and then we have 3 like full membership meetings a year. And so there is no admin on the executive committee. That is teachers, and I mean, yeah.
When I was
so-
on CTA, the administrators were part of the CTA.
Yeah.
and voter members.
And they are, like, they can be.
Yeah.
They have joined us, they just
Yeah,
haven't made it to meetings.
yeah.
Okay.
Dr.
That would
Mayor,
be
I do
something
have
to-
a few questions about the
something to
essential
discuss.
workers, though. I was doing some research before the
Are
board meeting
are we
tonight.
done with the CTR? Are we going to keep asking them questions? I just hate for them to stand
Oh,
up.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. I
It's
was
hot.
kind of, I was kind of thinking the same thing. So if we are done, like I said, I apologize for the emotion and I
No, I
appreciate
think
your
it's great.
ear.
No, you're
And
fine, it's great.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Mindy.
Okay.
Julie, don't forget to take your dad that
So,
message.
Dr. Mayor, would it be okay, because I was actually doing some research on the non-essential and the essential, and it seems to be best that the teachers, and also based on what I'm hearing this evening too, that the teachers are non-essential and be classified essential. Is that something we're able to do? And with that, I do have questions though, because if the paras are essential, what would they be doing if they were classified as essential, if they were needing to come to work? Because in March, what did they do?
Well, it sounds like we've moved past the essential conversation for tonight, so those are all points that we can talk about in the upcoming conversations, right? We haven't voted on it, and we do need to vote,
Yeah.
correct?
But I'm not going to, I mean, I want to know some of those answers before I vote one way or another.
We're
I
not
mean,
voting tonight, are we?
Well,
I
see,
thought we were going to.
We
name
could
the task
table it.
force and speak with the health, but that's up to the vote.
Yeah.
yeah, and somebody just has to move one way or the other
Are we-
or ask
It's
questions.
also nice to know those answers as we're going home tonight, to be able to think about those, due to the fact that we've been thinking about it for a week, and I've been doing research and reading up on
Yeah.
this, and
And there's
And
nothing,
I don't know about you guys, but last week's meeting, I wasn't comfortable. You know, I got a lot of information during that meeting and after that meeting, and it was unsettling. If we're gonna table something, I still would like to have some answers to
well, and
that thought.
and it's not a problem to come up with questions that we would, even if we did table it, like, here are some of the things that we would
Right.
like to have discussed in the working group, right?
I'd also like to know, like, the financial side of it. You know, if we've got people that are, and I want it pro, and, I mean, I want it pro for the teacher and I want it pro for the district. Like, what's that really look like? If it's something that we cannot afford as a district and we do not have the financial stance to control that, then we need to be made aware. It might be shocking the number that comes around. If we have teachers that are quarantined multiple times and now they're into their own time and we're only into October, that concerns me for them. So what does that look like for them? I don't want teachers to be out of their time in October and have nothing left and have a kiddo that needs their help, or I don't know how we come up with a real reason for that, but that's a real concern.
Yeah, I wonder if we look at, given what Tara is suggesting about quarantining, if, you know, how many of our teachers would that have applied to? And so if we extrapolate out, what would that look like?
Well, we have to remember too that the COVID pay also covers if a teacher isn't the person, but if their kiddo or their family member needs them, that COVID pay covers that. And so,
The first 10 days.
okay, so they're not, okay, but you still have to take at least four after that. And then they're going to be quarantined on top of that. So, I mean, it could be 8 days on top of another time. I don't know if there's a right answer. I'm not saying that there is. I just would like to have more specifics about the financial side of it.
Yeah, yep.
I don't really have an answer about what if the teachers were non-essential and the classified staff essential. When Kevin sent me that today, that was the first time I had even thought of that possibility that one would be deemed essential and the other would not. I read every comment from the classified staff, and I certainly understand what they're saying. They seem to be, and correct me, Kip, if this is not correct, but they seem to be very much in favor of the essential designation. So the teachers,
They're still confused about the difference between the 14 hours, or sorry, the 80 hours and.
yeah,
if we were to
yes.
be sent home.
That's the difference between the two laws.
Yeah.
And on the form that we have that teachers fill out or classified staff fill out to ask for COVID pay, many people are filling both out. One's for one law and one's for the other law. So I will send out an email tomorrow again and explain the two. The one that is not paid for the first 10 days is the law that says if your child has their school canceled or their daycare canceled and you have to stay home, you can receive 2/3 of your salary after 10 days. The other law is that if you have COVID or you're caring for someone with COVID, you're quarantined, or you have symptoms and you're seeking medical help.
The confusion comes with if the school is shut down and we are sent home again, as the whole district, like back in March. They don't know if we were considered essential, if that meant classified would still stay, or classified would be sent home.
Yeah, at that time, there was, the essential and non-essential wasn't a thing, so it didn't impact there.
I'm trying to explain
Now,
two separate situations.
now, if you are deemed essential, yes, it would very much impact you, because if school individuals were sent home to distance learning, the classified staff would come to work.
And that's what we want.
Yes, that's what I read.
And that's essential or non-essential?
That is if they are essential workers. If they are not, the difference is with an essential worker, they come out of quarantine early. They quarantine for 5 days or 7 days rather than 10 or 14.
Doesn't the return to learn plan say that classified staff would still report to work though with the shutdown?
Yes,
But that was written before the essential or
yes.
non-essential. So it really
How,
wouldn't.
the only time would be if there was a shutdown for the governor, of course.
Okay.
So my answer is, I would not suspect that we would do some are and some aren't, but this is also new to me that I can certainly think about it and get legal advice.
What is other districts doing when it comes to that?
I took a survey of superintendents, but I didn't think to say are some essential and some not essential. I had 34 responses, and 20 of those responses do not deem their workers essential. 14 of them do. I can go back and ask that group if there's an essential with the classified and a non-essential with the teachers. I've never heard of a district doing that, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. So I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you. I don't really know, Christie.
The CDC doesn't recommend that, do they? Do they just recommend you either designate them as essential or non-essential? Is that, or am I all mixed up here?
I think the CDC today, after the Department of Health and Senior Services came out and said that they have different guidelines now, as of today, that the CDC is not really recommending an essential designation. But that could change day after tomorrow.
Could have already changed.
Well, I guess that's one of my questions. If we as a board, eventually today, next week, next month, whatever, it seems like we're here every week or once or twice, so the next time we decide to sit here, if the CTA comes to us and says, okay, our teachers can't live on 2/3 of their salary, and not being essential is bothering us, and we're hearing loud and clear that we need to change, I mean, I hope that you will be strong enough and responsible enough to come to us and say that. That's going to be really important. I hear you say overworked, and I hear people say underpaid. I hate the thought of taking potentially 2/3 of your pay away because you've had to quarantine multiple times. That's scary to me. That doesn't make me feel like I'm sitting here supporting you, Mindy. I mean, I'm not trying to be irrational. I really want this to be an open discussion, and I want to feel what you feel.
But once again, once we deem one way, we can't go back?
We can. I think you can change your language at any time, probably.
As long as we don't put it in policy, it's a live document, yeah, we can change that.
If it's in the part of the RQO.
Dr. Mary, you gave us that proclamation. Does that make it a certain policy or not, or whatever?
No.
It's just our wording.
And when I said that if you want to vote on action items, they should be policy. You do not have to adopt it into policy.
Okay.
You can give guidelines, and you can give procedures or whatever.
Okay.
And Mindy, you're recommending for you guys
No.
non-essential, correct?
Right, well, we just have a lot, honestly, we have a lot of questions, and what, I mean, based on our conversations with the health department and just the confusion right now, is that, is being deemed essential mean that we would be forced to come out of quarantine? Does it mean that I could come to work without a test as long as I don't have symptoms? Like, what would it mean? And so I don't think that we're always gonna say we don't wanna be essential. I think the big point is we have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And with discussion, we could probably get to something, but we don't know for sure from the health department's conversations if, as a district, we even have the authority to say, well, under these conditions, teachers only quarantine for 7 days, because the health department could come in and say, well, that's really few, you're staying home for 14. So like, we don't even know for sure how all of that works.
Well, and
So
yesterday,
if we could find that out.
I agree. Yesterday, I made mention of a different district's plan that if you're positive, you're home 10 days. If you're contact to the positive, then you're the 14 days. It is confusing. And I think that with there not being any language at all, there is lots of question. Working with essential workers since March, some of those things are clearly laid out for those people. I mean, the things that you're asking may be things that simply is wait, you won't come back with this, or you will, you know. I agree that there needs to be some conversation, clarity. There might be a situation where that group with the health department could come together as a common ground to say this might work.
That's exactly what I had in mind. Who? Let me have a name for recognize. Okay, to recognize you officially.
I had a question to our school nurse today because I have staff members coming back into our quarantine. So I asked her to clarify, just if the nurse could. She contacted the health department, and this was the response she got from them. She spoke with them to confirm, if you have symptoms, you are not able to work.
Right.
Period. Even if your test is negative. If you are quarantined and test negative, you can return to work wearing an N95 mask, like we said, for the remainder of quarantine time. If positive, you just have to stay quarantined.
Right.
1, 2, 3.
ABC, yeah.
Okay, my point is that that's the kind of conversation we would be having in the working group with SCHD.
It needs to happen
there.
that way.
Yeah, it needs to happen in an official capacity with FITS, with SCHD, with teachers, with admin, with board members. So.
And I feel very confident that we'll be able to come up with a resolution that everybody, classified, certified, board, everybody, health department.
That's what we like to hear.
I think everyone needs to understand that the health department is in charge here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they send us the dates that people can come out of quarantine. We don't make those up.
Right.
They also change them.
Everything that we get, from names to dates to whatever, comes from the health department.
Okie dokie. So,
So,
who's going to make any
make a
kind of?
motion to table the essential workers.
Well, I got a question.
Do we need to table it?
Dr. Key, before
Yeah.
that. Didn't the district order some N95?
If you table, you bring it back.
Can we have some on order?
Not large scale
No.
N95.
What-
How many do we actually have in our possession?
Regular masks?
N95.
N95, I don't have it.
Because when all this started, I'm pretty sure I thought.
There were some N95 masks that Grace obtained. There was a number that was in something.
They ordered a bunch of masks, but they were
But
just.
they were not
surgical.
N95s.
Yeah, they were
I
just
don't have the
surgical
numbers
masks.
for you. I can get that.
I think that's right.
I don't know.
Don't worry about getting it. I just.
I think
thought
it would behoove the district at this point and this juncture in the road to find us some N95 masks. And as I personally recommended in June and July, we need to have N95 masks available to our staff. The CDC, we're going to talk about what the CDC wants. That's all fine and good, but they will flat out tell you that every mask that every one of us except Aaron is wearing is not effective. So if we're going to follow them, then we need to put all of our staff, every person in our buildings in N95 mask, the employees that we employ. That's what they say. So
I think we ought to make that a
So there
priority.
is a motion.
There's a motion on the table. Yep.
Did you get a
And you
second?
had a,
Do we have a second to table?
I have a counter offer,
Well, we've got a second.
but now we have a second.
made
so
the
you can go
motion.
ahead.
We got a second.
my second.
That was Ed. That was Ed.
What you got?
Wait, so Ed, have you rescinded your second?
rescinded.
Okay, Ed has rescinded his second.
I would like to make a motion that at this time, we do not make district personnel essential employees.
So that's a no to the
So that's
essential.
a
Okay.
no to essential employees at this time, of which
So
we
that
can
would-
revisit in the future if needed.
So,
if we
so would
table,
that
then it keeps
include,
actioning.
so then that would encourage them to work and see if they could come to some sort of a common ground and comfortable ground in that health department?
It just means. that
District meeting?
we've
I mean-
heard That we wanted input from the teachers. They say that they don't feel comfortable being deemed essential. There's some still confusion with the classified, who are about 80%, yes, I'd like to be essential. And that we are not recognizing anyone as essential at this time, to be reevaluated after discussion and.
We got a
panel.
meeting in 2 weeks anyway, so.
Second.
Second, which one? Because we got two motions. Brian's?
Brian's.
Brian's.
Linda, get
Because we can revisit this at any time. We could revisit it tomorrow if we want to call a special meeting.
Lordy, lordy.
I am not gonna be able to make
I
it
mean,
tomorrow.
I'm not gonna be here. I'm not gonna be here.
I'm not
but
gonna
we
make
could
it
do
tomorrow.
I'll be
coming
20
back.
minutes late. Okay, so we've got a motion and a second to vote not to deem essential workers, to deem our employees as essential workers. Any further discussion?
Do we want to hear from building level admins on that? Do we, Dr. Mayor, do we have anything from them?
On the essential worker,
Yes.
no, they did not take a stand.
Okay.
Call the question.
Question. All those in favor of not voting, I want to get my negatives right, not voting,
No.
not making the workers essential, not making our employees essential workers. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get there. All those in favor of Brian's motion?
Say aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Dang.
Okay. Okey dokey.
There's your answer.
We had the returning to learning plan here. I think that's probably, is there any further discussion about that? It sounds like it's going to be just, I think we've already made clear what we have to say about that.
And the board members did see the quarantine.
The quarantine language.
Yes, did we?
Was that, go ahead.
Did you get, like you sent this out, did you get any feedback at all back from it? From
It hasn't been
I
sent
got,
out.
not really, no. I got some feedback from I asked the administrative team to look it over. They had some semantics about some terms, whether we actually meant elementary buildings or whether we put Spainhauer on it, but nothing that was a big variation from this plan. But the basic line for this, for the quarantine is, the transition to all distance learning will be determined if 10% of the building's adults are absent and/or if 15% of the building's students are absent.
Okay.
That will go building by building.
And this will be, this language would be in effect when?
When you're returning to learning.
Because have we,
Whatever the cut and paste
What does
text.
that look like? Like numbers, what, like an idea? How many adults could be gone,
Yeah, the reason that
average?
we did it by percentage is because it's a lot different in Southeast than it is in.
Sure,
Mm-hmm.
sure.
And I believe Ian, when I was the admin team yesterday, I believe you said you had 44 teachers in your building? At least 44. So when you're looking at numbers, you're talking about 5 teachers to get 10%.
But
But when you're looking at smaller schools, you're looking at 2 to 3 probably.
Before the conversation moves on, I do need to say that at this threshold, the building administrators that are involved in this will make will evaluate, talk with the central office, and then we'll make a decision. It's not that if we're at 10.2, that automatically go home at 10:30. That will be evaluated.
So if they do that, then how much time will they give to their families before they close their doors? Will it be the 72 hours that we originally said? If that's the case, then it won't come back to the board, which I'm perfectly fine with, but I don't want to hear from my employees or anybody else that all of a sudden they don't have anybody. I don't care who it is. I used to have little kids. I mean, not having that notice is frightening.
And we talked about that.
Okay.
And we do plan to give a day or two notice. It says 72 hours, but if it's really important and it's really a spike and we deem it an emergency, we may have to do it quickly. It won't be in 2 hours, or it won't be in tomorrow morning when
We're gonna
you
be right
wake
back
up.
here.
We'll give some time, but the administrators wanted to make sure that we understand that if it's an emergency, we have to act.
And we're going building by, on the building
We're
level.
Right now, we're going building by building.
What,
Because that seemed to be what the board desired and seemed to be what the administration.
Aside from that, though, has Saline County Health Department looked at the quarantine plan that you're discussing here?
They have not.
Okay, so this is an example of something then that the working group would need to be, need to have a look at.
We're going to put it in the plan because it was such a.
Sticking point.
It was a sticking point and it did cause problems because it wasn't in there. And the task force had said, you better put it in, and I did not put it in, so they were right, I was wrong.
And then it's something that could be updated.
But it absolutely could be
yeah.
updated the next day, the next
Right.
hour.
As soon as, when we hear, input from them.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
So it won't be 3 stages. It will be building by building.
Building by building.
Okay.
Well, and then in these here, this is the way that they will teach with a hybrid in distance, at a distance, in seat. They wanted to look at decisions concerning the distance learning, particularly in these 3. But if you look down here, when we start talking about whether a school building is going to be gone, it's going to be independently by that building.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. On the sheet that I've got Benton, Eastwood, Southeast, and Spanhauer
Correct.
all in one group.
Correct.
And then the Career Center, Northwest, and the high school all in one group. And I know the Career Center's needs have to be different than the high school as far
Right,
as
and
blocks.
those are to decide whether we're distance learning or we're in-seat learning, and how we're going to go about doing that. There is an elementary, middle, and a high school sections. But, and you're right, because the Career Center has totally different
Sure.
needs, as does Northwest.
Well, my feeling on all this, I think if we do that, we need to stick to our guns. Stick with that, let the community know we're gonna stick with this, because I'll tell you, even my own daughter tells me that she's so confused, and she's pretty up on this too. But if that's the plan that we're gonna go with, and we're gonna do that, let's stick to it. Period. I mean, no change in mid-stride.
Unless the Saline County Health Department says we should do it a little differently. Yeah.
I know they'll look into it, but another thing we need to consider when they start having this meeting is what are the ramifications of one building shutting down and all the others still going?
Tara I talked to Tara about that, Harry, in length, and she supported that.
Well, I was really a big supporter of that. Now I'm sitting here thinking, well,
Yeah.
it's gonna impact food service, it's
Yeah,
gonna impact
for sure.
counseling, it's gonna impact things like that. We need to take that into consideration too.
The management of the district, it will be impacted significantly.
Yeah.
If one goes down and the rest stay open.
Yeah.
Every part of the district. will
It
be
seemed like a good idea when I was thinking about it, but then, all right.
Okay, so then, you were set on that one? My question then would be, which of us would like to be part of this working group?
I would love to be a part of the working group. I have a keen desire to be a part of it.
We got one. Well, we don't have to have 3, we could have just 1, but we shouldn't have more than 3, because if we do, then it's gonna be a party for everyone.
We got that board thing.
Yeah? We got 2. Okay. Anybody else who feels strongly about it and wants to jump on the bandwagon, if you so desire, just let us know. There's still room for 1.
Are these gonna be evening meetings?
Who
Or
knows?
daytime?
The health department works, those people work through the day, so we'll probably have to make
It'll probably
ourselves.
be a 9 to 5.
Yeah. Yeah,
That pretty
put
much
you out.
eliminates me.
Unless you could call in.
Doesn't mean I can private Zoom you.
Yeah.
You know, or something like
Yeah.
that. We could always try to do something different.
Well, and the health
that works for
department
your
are
day.
pros at Zooming, so.
Cool. Okay,
They're
that's a
pros at Zooming.
Depends on where I'm at too.
definite possibility.
So then, how does this work with, if you implement that plan, then I would like to have an update on where our buildings are at this minute.
Where they are.
If you implement the plan that you've presented to us tonight for the quarantine policy, where are we at by building or by section on the 15 or on your percentages. In other words, well, so how do we know when people go back to school? What are our admins expecting? Yes, Paula, please.
That's Paula Brown.
Yep. Okay.
So I think 72 hours is ideal. I mean, I have kids of my own, like I get being the time, but we also have to make sure that we have space not only healthy wise, but supervision wise.
I was gonna say, yeah, like you're saying, it's also different if you're talking about students being out and teachers being out too, as far as the 72 hours. If you've got enough teachers that aren't quarantined, then you can give 72 hours.
Yep.
You know, students are gonna be out anyway because they're quarantined.
Right.
But if you don't have enough adults to run the building and to be present, then that would require a more immediate action, 24 or 48 hours notice, because you don't have the bodies to staff the building.
Yeah.
Paula,
So as far as the middle school goes, we have people trickling back in every day this weekend to next week. I propose that the middle school comes back the 15th, this is the original date. We have the majority of staff and students back by then. I know like our athletes right now, we have 40% of our athletes quarantined. So you can't feasibly participate with people not being there, if that makes sense. Ian and I spoke, he's not in the same situation that I'm in. It's not safe for our students right now to be in school, or is it for them to participate in those extra activities? So I think
There you go. We need to talk about that then.
we're able to be in school.
Liz,
So
Eliza.
for our building, it would be in everyone's best interest to wait till the 15th, like we originally proposed, just because of our large numbers that are active.
Okay.
We haven't talked yet about what they have recommended and asked for their start dates, which we can, or we can wait till we're through with this, with the committee members.
I think we've got our, please.
Can I sidebar on Paula for a second?
You go right ahead.
What would that do? You said 40% of the athletes, so we got a very nicely worded email from a
I was
engaged.
gonna chat with her and, after we got done tonight to see about those four, but you're welcome to
Well,
experience it.
Yeah, go.
Robbie,
We got an email from a very engaged young lady that is concerned about competing in a cross-country event for Beaker this weekend. They have 3 members of the cross-country, none of them are quarantined. I mean, I was under the impression that we had allowed that, but I mean, ultimately, it would be your decision. I just get your opinion on it. I
Right,
guess.
we talked about that yesterday. As we spoke, the information we have received from last week, yesterday, today, things continue to change. You know, I believe that if we are not able to be in school due to our large amount of cases, I don't believe we should be sending our kids elsewhere to participate. You know, and I know that the high school is sitting in a different situation because the number of kids that they have quarantined is much less. The teachers they have out is much less, so he's operating kind of at a different viewpoint than what I am.
Sure.
So you know, I think with the amount of kids that we have out, the amount of teachers that go out, I think if we can't come back before the 15th, I don't think we should be able to come back and participate either. You know, if it's safe for another school to come back to school, then by all means, I think that's appropriate for them to be participating in activities. You know, that's a tough call. That's a tough call.
Sure.
We do it for one, is it appropriate?
That come from participating in extracurricular activities, and you know, I think all of you guys understand the seat that you're sitting in, you make really difficult choices right now, and you always put in the forefront students' safety, right? And then also pairing it with quality education, and we're trying to do that together. So I believe that that's a tough decision to make, so I'd be happy to discuss that further.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, so then to put a bow on the working group things, and Dr. Mayer, I will be in touch with you about finding other folks on your end of things, teachers, classified, administrators, that we can use to,
Or the committee that is going to the working group.
bingo. Yep. And we'll try to get a meeting set up.
I'd really like to see, we have 225 teachers approximately in the district. I'd like to see more than 2 teachers represented on the committee, so that's just.
Mhm. I mean,
I just threw 2 out because I know once we talk about hospital personnel, health department personnel, school board, sometimes you get too large of a working group and you don't get work.
You're right.
So
Yeah, you're right.
but surely we can have
But-
more than the
send
two.
it 3 or 4 names. If we've got to whittle it down, then we'll whittle it down.
There you go. Yeah.
If that's fine with everyone else.
Sure, okay. And then Dr. Murray, you said there was something else you wanted to, oh, the returning
The
fee.
administrators met yesterday, and we came to an agreement as to when they would like to return to school.
Make sure that microphone's over by Dr. Mayer, because I'm sure that the community's going to want to
this is what they definitely want to hear.
What Dr. Mayer just said was that she had met with the administrative team and that they had talked about details about when they wanted to return to in-person learning.
The high school and the, and Northwest, which is the TLC program, and the Career Center have requested to come back on the 8th. Right? I want to make sure that, everything I'm saying is correct. The Spainhour Primary, Benton, Eastwood, and Southeast have requested to come back on the 15th. And that would be also Beaker, as Paula spoke. I tried to lead the discussion, letting them know that it was a building-by-building decision, and the secondary group felt that they were ready and wanted to come back on the 8th.
Any questions for Dr. Mayer on that?
I assume, then does that mean you're gonna come back on 8A, then on Thursday?
It'll be an A day for us to return. The last day we were in person was a B day for students, and so we returned as an A day. Just to touch on a few things, Paula's a principal for one of my students, and I just want to say that I have complete trust in you, Paula, to make sound decisions for your building, and I appreciate your thoughts and also your sentiments in regards to it being a tough decision. I want my child to be at school too. He doesn't do as well at home, but I trust Paula to do her role, which is to ensure the safety of my child, which I can't be in that building, nor do I know how that building operates. To speak to our numbers, we will have 3 students that are quarantined on the 8th. They will be released on the 10th, and they'll return to us. We have 1 other student that's working at a distance already, that's also on that list that will return on the 11th, and we have 1 staff member who is quarantined due to a close contact that will return on the 8th, which will be our first day back. So we do not have any staff that will be quarantined or in a positive situation or positive test on the 8th. And so that's what drives my decision, including the number of students that we have available to come to school. But I also respect the administrative decision of Dr. Mayer, whoever the governing body is for determining what that is, their sentiments in regards to safety. Because my line stays the same. If it's safe to be here, then I want the kids here. If it's safe to participate in activities, then I want to do that. Right now, my numbers tell me, according to our plan, that we meet all those thresholds.
Okay, thank you. Cool.
I attended your meeting yesterday, as you all know. I was very impressed with your advocacy for your staff and your concern for your students. I just want to say that. Those were the 2 things that I only heard from everybody. This is how many staff I've got out, this is what I can and can't do, and this is how many students I have out. It wasn't how this is gonna make me feel, bus driving, all those other frilly things. It was the 2 things that what we're here for. So I appreciated that yesterday as well. And I still said if there's other supports, then shoot them to us and let us know. You know, whether that was teachers on the ground, or property, physical, whatever that comes to. So.
Okay.
I'm
You
gonna,
know, oh, go ahead. Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna ask this question because I know it's gonna come up later, and it's actually it's gonna come up for me later, so. If the high school goes back the 8th, and the other schools don't go back to the 15th, would we, if that put a family in a dilemma of, and I'm not gonna classify these high school kids as babysitters when they're at home, but mine are actually teachers right now.
while they're at home. So, would we allow like an alternating distant learning for, say, if you had 2 high school students, could they?
So what I would say to that is what I would say to any family or any student, and I'm glad I have this opportunity to say this publicly, so you hear it from them instead of reading it on paper.
Speak loud so everybody can hear.
If a student needs additional supports, we're doing everything that we can to support them. And there's students that are here, and I think that they can tell you that the teachers are contacting them frequently. Their administrators are communicating with them and trying to problem solve each one of those areas. Of course, we can't meet all of those needs, but we're getting a lot closer on technology. I mean, at this point, everybody who has requested a device has a device. And so we have to be flexible in our planning. We're asking our teachers to be extremely flexible, and I'm speaking for some of them right now in regards to how do we serve those students when we say they're going to be in your class on an A day, and now they're not because of this other need. But what I've found, without a shadow of a doubt with our staff, and that's why I can speak to the high school, is they'll find a way. They'll find a way to meet the need of the students in the classroom. It might not be perfect for either one of them, but we also realize that there's life going on and there's reality, and we will find a way to meet that solution. So Matt, my answer to you is, if that student communicates and that family communicates what the need is, then we'll do everything in our power to meet that need.
Okay.
But if there's no communication, then it's very hard to serve that student and then come back, 2 weeks down the road and say, well, I was taking care of family needs and I neglected to tell you.
Sure.
Because it wasn't important to me at that time, or wasn't the most significant thing. I understand there's things that get in the way, but that's the key, is the communication on the front end of it, and then we'll find a plan to make it work.
Well, I wanted to ask out loud, because for one, I was wondering myself up here, but I knew it was gonna come up later, tomorrow or whenever it gets out, the staggered start, so
Yeah.
better to answer the question now.
So I'm looking to find solutions. That's not just, we're talking about community members, but we also have many staff in here that are in the same situation. So I have students that are at 2 separate buildings. If my elementary student, which is a 3rd grader, would get sent home by himself, he can't be there. But right now he's okay because his 5th grade brother is there to kind of help him navigate that. If that were to go away, then my family dynamics would change, or my situation would change, and I would have to seek out opportunities for him to be there. So can we partner with community agencies such as the YMCA, church groups? Is there a way that we can reach out and make this a problem that we can all solve together, rather than looking at what is the district going to do to support these students that are not able to be in their seat? I think that we need to look bigger than just the body that's here.
Another thing I heard at the meeting yesterday was that parents, you need to update your information. They are calling, they are reaching out, they are coming by your houses and checking on you. And they said that they are calling 5, 7 different numbers, going to 2 different places, and they're not able to find you or reach you. So call in, send your updated information, make sure your kid's checking his email, and you're checking the email with them, because that's slowing down the process and they're burning a lot of extra time. Because if it takes 8 times to get a hold of a kid, I believe I got 7 or 6 or 7 phone calls that Ian had said, to one kid, to one family, found out they had moved, trying to track them down. That burns a lot of manpower to chase one kid. We're chasing them, we're gonna find them, but help us out with it.
Yeah, and make sure the mic picks that up, so that's the people out there that need to hear that.
Well, and I think as a general for the board, I may be speaking on turn, but I'm saying it loud and clear. You think I need that? I'm saying it loud and clear that at a day's notice, your kid could be out of school at a day's notice. So have a backup plan. Do the very best you can to have a backup plan that will support your kid, that will support your teachers, that will support your family. It's frightening to me looking at childcare in our community. It's very limited. If the high school is going back and these other kiddos are not, have a plan. That's all I can say is have a plan. Okay, I'm out. I'm out.
I make a motion, we,
Adjourn to closed session. Okay, second.
Early second.
Roll call.
Oh my God.
Brian.
Aye.
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 I am out. Holy cow, what is that?
Hey, Kip, you guys may want to check
Hey,
on
Ian,
that tomorrow.
during that executive meeting we had before, the Y said they would be
Oh my
glad
gosh,
to
that's
cooperate
scary.
on something like that. So So they're already on
Am I
board.
ghost white?
Somebody
Because I
just
feel
has
like
to
I'm ghost white. Matt Ghost.
I'm not sure how
I just saw something out of the corner of my eye, and I thought, what is
Oh, that scared the dickens out of me.
We might have to send
I
them.
would seek that opportunity out.
We might have to
Ian,
send a
Ian.